but for the humble worker who work hard and who pays taxes, and you want to know exactly where his money is going. So this is why Bill C4 is killing those transparency, democracy, and accountability bill that we tabled 2 years ago.
Okay, we're going to go to statements by members. Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past summer, I was invited to have dinner at Matthew House in my riding, a largely volunteer initiative that provides shelter to newly arrived refugees who have nowhere else to turn. I had the privilege of spending several hours with the residents of Matthew House discussing their hopes and their dreams. Though they had only just arrived, these refugees that I spoke with were already eager to find jobs, to build lives, and to contribute to our community.
When you cross the threshold of Matthew House, you don't feel like you're in a shelter. It feels more like a house. I wish to congratulate the staff and volunteers of Matthew House for their generosity and devotion, and for their will to welcome those in need to their home. They represent what Canadians can achieve when they show their best.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. It's great to be back with my fellow colleagues from across Canada. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, September 24th, Parkland County in my riding of Yellowhead will be holding a grand opening ceremony for their newest park. I was extremely moved to learn that local residents voted to name this park Constable Chelsea Robinson Park. Constable Robinson, age 25, was a member of the RCMP for only 7 months when she lost her life in the line of duty. For a member who paid the ultimate sacrifice, I am confident that the naming of this park will keep her memory close to her family, the hearts of her family, friends, and community. Although I am unable to attend in person, I look forward to visiting the park personally to pay my respects to the memory of Constable Robinson. Thank you.
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to stand in the House today and recognize veterans. Many veterans live in my riding of New Brunswick Southwest, and much of Base Gagetown training grounds are here as well. I am the daughter and the sister of Canadian Army veterans. This past Sunday, my daughter, my legislative assistant, and I participated in Canada's Army Run here in Ottawa. This is no ordinary race. In the true spirit of strength and country, several of Canada's ill and injured soldiers led over 25,000 participants through the streets of Ottawa. Canadians overwhelmingly and enthusiastically showed their support for our military and veterans all along the route. This event allows everyday Canadians to join in solidarity for our Canadian Army Forces, Air Force, and Navy to walk or run beside the people who protect our families and our homes. Proceeds and fundraising efforts are directed to Soldiers On and the Military Families Fund. Mr. Speaker, this is a remarkable event, and I encourage my colleagues to join me next year. Thank you.
The honourable member for Regina Leuven.
Mr. Speaker, Regina is one of the only Canadian cities to have elected MPs from all three major parties. When this House asked all MPs to host town halls on electoral reform, I invited my Liberal and Conservative colleagues to co-host a citywide event. Unfortunately, they declined to host town halls. Fortunately, the people of Regina have been more engaged. Over 200 came to the town hall I held on September 7th, and many also attended the Minister of Democratic Institutions consultation on September 11th. As the only local MP to have attended these public meetings, I can report that most people at both events expressed a preference for mixed-member proportional representation. When the Electoral Reform Committee kicked off its cross-country tour in Regina on September 19th, they heard the same message. Mr. Speaker, the people of Regina are engaged on electoral reform, and they want a proportional system to make every vote count equally.
The honourable member for Argenteuil-La Petite Nation.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all Canadians, the Government of Canada would like to extend our congratulations To all members of Team Canada that represent us at the recent Rio 2016 Olympic and Paralympics Games.
From sea to sea to sea, all Canadians thank the athletes, the coaches, and I also wish to take this opportunity to mark National Coaches Week, the medical and support staff, as well as the family and friends for their passion and determination to attain the highest level of their sport. You have inspired all of us, and particularly our youth, to be more active in sport, and for some, even to pursue their own dream to own the podium.
The Government of Canada is proud to support our high-performance athlete and the largest single source of support to the Canadian sports system. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, 16-year-old Haley Aegis from St. Thomas has been diagnosed with ITP, a rare blood disorder that destroys her blood platelets, which should clot her blood. A normal count reads between 150 and 400. Haley's platelet count is under 10. Treatments are very costly and currently not covered. Haley's soccer team from St. Thomas, the St. Thomas Scorpions, had the idea to host a small fundraiser that became much more than they ever expected. This group of awesome 16-year-old girls created Dream It, Believe It, Achieve It, and they did just that for their friend. The event, called 6K for number 6, started as a small Facebook invitation but turned into a huge event. More than 400 people packed a small community park to run the 6K for Haley. They raised over $22,000 that day, which is enough to cover 5 months of treatment for her. But more than that, they raised the needed awareness of ITP. Haley, your friends and your community are right behind you. And congratulations to the St. Thomas Scorpions for being such amazing friends. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Speaker, I rise to acknowledge the 25th anniversary of Ukraine's independence. On August 24th, Ukraine celebrated this important milestone, and thousands of my constituents in Parkdale High Park celebrated with it. Throughout its history, Ukraine has struggled against external threats. In 1991, it was the Soviet Union. Today, it is Putin's Russia. I'm proud as an MP and the Vice Chair of the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group to stand resolutely in support of Ukraine, its territorial integrity and its sovereignty. I'm also proud to stand against the illegal occupation of Crimea and the illegal invasion of the Donbass. But in Canada, Mr. Speaker, we don't just defend Ukraine, we celebrate it. We celebrate the food, the music, the culture at events like the Bloor West Village Ukrainian Festival in my riding of Parkdale High Park. We also celebrate the tremendous contributions of Ukrainian Canadians to Canada, a history which dates back 125 years to 1891. For these contributions, I say, Дуже дякую. And to Ukrainians everywhere, I say, Slava Ukraini. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chateauguay-Lacal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am dedicating my first speech of this sitting to two agri-food companies that are among the most successful in the riding of Chateauguay-Lacal.
First, Ceresco, based in Saint-Herblain-Premier for 30 years, specialist in soybeans, has founded a research center in Saint-Isidore to develop new varietals and to increase productivity. Ceresco exports to Europe and Asia and has a liaison office in Japan and in China. And Group Vegco in Sherrington, which specializes in the production of root vegetables, has launched investment projects to increase its onion storage capacity and to modernize its packaging technology. This will allow it to remain one of Quebec's biggest distributors. Our region leads Quebec in market vegetable production.
These two major players have placed the bar even higher. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, every year since I was first elected, I've held a summer listening tour, and over the years I've heard important ideas like reducing interprovincial trade barriers to help small family wineries, or creating a better gas tax agreement to help municipalities like Kelowna and West Kelowna with infrastructure. This year I met with many credit unions and heard a growing concern with the introduction of new common reporting standards. These standards are designed to monitor bank accounts for international tax evasion, but not all financial institutions pose the same risk. If the government continues with the adoption of these new reporting standards next July, all credit unions will be required to implement a time-consuming compliance regime. Alternatively, the government could utilize the 98% test that is currently used with the American FACTA standards, which exempts credit unions that have 2% or less of their assets held by non-residents. It's an approach that is already set up and works. Mr. Speaker, focusing on the economy is job number one for any government of any stripe. Adding more red tape and costs to small, medium-sized credit unions is not helpful and will not grow the economy. I hope the Finance Minister reviews the current approach.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, science is at the heart of innovation and touches every aspect of our lives. In Kitchener Centre, the School of Pharmacy, Communitech, Google, and many other organizations and individuals in the broader community, like the Perimeter Institute and the Quantum Nano Center, are working to advance science. The strong spirit of collaboration in our community is the secret of our many successes. Researchers engage with each other and the public through events such as Doors Open Waterloo Region, held this past weekend, free public lectures, science camps, and school tours that fascinate and inspire. It is Science Literacy Week, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank educators and scientists across Canada who are working to light the spark in the next generation of scientific thinkers. Thank you.
The honourable member for Burlington.
In 2003, 400,000 people had access to antiretroviral treatment to fight HIV/AIDS. Today, there are 17 million people who have access to this treatment. This huge increase is thanks to the efforts of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria.
I am incredibly proud that our government is contributing $804 million to this fight, and that it was able to raise almost $13 billion, which will help save 8 million lives.
Lives of young people like Ahmed Habre, Lois Maturu, and Ashley Murphy, who are strong activists because they have access to treatment. They made it clear that our legacy to future generations has to be the eradication of these diseases by 2030. HIV and TB disproportionately affect the world's most poor and most vulnerable. And as Mark Dybel of the Global Fund said, we can beat these epidemics. We just need to be better humans.
It was for the millions of people around the world suffering from HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria that the world met in Montreal last weekend to end these epidemics for good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Cypress Hills, Grassland.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 75% of the world's population is affected by religious persecution. It's the defining issue of our time and deserves a coordinated international response. Recently, I had the honour of attending the second international conference of the IPP4. The International Panel of Parliamentarians for Freedom of Religion or Belief is an informal network of members of Parliament advancing freedom of religion or belief. Last week, we hosted nearly 100 parliamentarians from 60 countries. We met in Berlin to address specific countries of concern, to foster regional connections, and to resource and equip ourselves to pursue long-term solutions and be effective in our home countries. Despite having the world's worst acronym, IPP4 continues to work to protect and promote the embattled right to believe. As a founding member of IPP4, I invite all members of this House to join this important network. The right to believe is what shapes our common humanity. If we are not vigilant, we risk losing it.
The honourable member for La Salle-Marne, Verdun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On August 24th, an earthquake registering 6.2 on the Richter scale hit the central Italian provinces of the Marches, Lazio, and Abruzzo. While my family's origins are in the Marches, my family and friends were all lucky, but others were not. At last count, 297 people had perished and many more had been injured or had lost their homes. Mr. Speaker, Italian Canadians across the country have come together with a variety of initiatives, all through SOS Italia and the Canadian Red Cross. I invite all of you to join the Italian Canadian community in my riding and across Greater Montreal for a lunch to be held this Sunday at Cégep André Laurando.
Tickets cost $30, and all profits will be given to SOS Italia. And you can enjoy a great pasta dinner to support our friends and family in Italy. All are welcome.
Bravo. The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we mark Police and Peace Officers National Memorial Day this Sunday, let us remember today in this chamber, let us honor the bravery, the dedication, and the selflessness of all officers across Canada, including those who have suffered injury, and yes, those who have paid the ultimate price while protecting us. It is well known that the concern and welfare of others exemplifies the law enforcement community. This extraordinary commitment is displayed in the very poignant demonstrations of solidarity when large numbers of officers from places across the country come together to honor the passing of one of their own. We've observed this profound gesture far too many times. 4 officers have died in the line of duty in Canada this past year. Let us then acknowledge the crucial role that police officers play in safeguarding our rights and freedoms, and let us pay tribute to the lost lives of officers in this country and beyond, and thank their families for their incredible sacrifices on behalf of our safety and welfare. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday there was a horrific fire in Shamattawa First Nations. This is a remote fly-in community in northern Manitoba of over 1,000 people. This devastating fire destroyed the town's only grocery store, the band office, internet service, 911 call center, and the radio station. Thankfully, there has been no report of loss of life or injury. The chief has declared a state of emergency, and today he and his officials are going door to door to explain how the situation will be handled. I'd like to thank the chief for his leadership, and our thoughts are with the community during this difficult time. We do call on the government to ensure that all required support, including the immediate need for water, baby formula, and general supplies, is met immediately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Orleans. Mr. Speaker, September 25th is Franco-Ontarian Day. I wish to recognize the Francophone community groups in the riding of Orleans, as well as its French-speaking population, 40,000 strong. I would particularly like to salute the great work done by the Orleans Franco-Ontarian Heritage and History Society, the Orleans Mouvement d'Implication Francophone, the Rendezvous for Francophone Seniors of Ottawa, the AOE Arts Council, the Shenkman Arts Centre, the Montfort Hospital, the Conseil des Écoles Publiques de l'Est de l'Ontario, the Conseil des Écoles Catholiques du Centre-Est, and the many other groups who work hard to maintain Franco-Ontarian heritage in Orleans. I would also like to invite everyone to Parliament this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Thanks to an initiative from my colleague from Glengarry, Prescott Russell, Parliament will be lit up in green and white for Franco-Ontarian Day, and also to commemorate the accomplishments of Maurice Bélanger for the Franco-Ontarian community. Thank you.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
After days of the Prime Minister defending inappropriate expenses, the Liberals have finally admitted that they've been using the taxpayer as their personal ATM. The Prime Minister's friends admitted that they claimed tens of thousands of dollars of inappropriate expenses, which the Prime Minister signed off on. This clearly shows a lack of judgment on behalf of the Prime Minister. What other expenses is the Prime Minister hiding and defending?
Good question. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I've stated before, it has been the Government of Canada's policy to reimburse relocation costs of senior officials and their families since the 1970s. This policy was last updated by the previous Conservative government and applied to every Prime Minister's office since. In fact, the previous Prime Minister's office approved over $300,000 in relocation expenses, including one relocation at a cost of $93,131. Mr. Speaker, we know that these policies need to be updated. That's why our Prime Minister is taking action and has asked the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it only took the Liberals 9 weeks to rack up over $1 million in moving expenses for their Liberal insiders. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals themselves have admitted that the expenses were inappropriate. Now, they were reimbursed for hotels, for meals, for actual moving expenses, but then there was something called personalized cash payments that these staffers received. What is a personalized cash payment? What other Liberal staffers receive personalized cash payments? And does the Prime Minister commit to telling us and telling Canadians who received these ambiguous cash payments, and will they be paid back to the taxpayer?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, once again, I will reiterate and repeat that the policies that are in place for relocation expenses have been in place since the 1970s and were most recently updated by the previous Conservative government. The difference between the previous government and our government is that our Prime Minister recognizes the need that more can be done and has instructed the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portage Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister had a choice, and the very first choice he made was to help himself and his friends at the expense of the Canadian taxpayer. The Prime Minister signed off on these expenses. Which other ministers, including the House Leader, did the House Leader sign off on personalized cash payments? What are they, and how many ministers signed off on Liberal insiders getting these ambiguous cash payments?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been talking about this issue this entire week, and we recognize that more needs to be done. Our Prime Minister has instructed the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. That is the leadership of this Prime Minister. That is the direction of this government. We will continue to work hard for Canadians and to answer their questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, what we saw yesterday was anything but transparency. What it was another case of Liberals getting caught red-handed. Since the start, this government has been dipping into taxpayer money with both fists. Limos, trips with the in-laws, office renos, personal photos, and now the Prime Minister's cronies' moving expenses. Mr. Speaker, when will Canadians ever be able to trust the judgment of a Prime Minister who doesn't appreciate the value of their money? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will repeat that the current rules were written by the Conservative government in 2008 and revisited in 2011. The Prime Minister's office previously approved over $300,000 in moving expenses, including for a person who claimed $93,000 for one move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, not only are they dipping into the public purse with both fists, but all week long the Prime Minister has defended the indefensible in an attempt to cover the whole thing up. He displayed a flagrant lack of judgment, but that's no surprise. There's no end of examples of wasted taxpayer money. The party's been going long enough, Mr. Speaker. Could they finally stop handing out Canadians' money to the PM's cronies? Where is the Prime Minister's judgment? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's important to point out that the Government of Canada has a policy for reimbursing moving expenses and has had such a policy since the 70s. The Prime Minister asked the Secretary of the Treasury Board to draft a new policy. We know we can do more, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby. According to Amnesty International, China holds the record for the most executions in 2015. According to the UN, China regularly resorts to torture. Despite that, the government intends to negotiate an extradition treaty with the Chinese government. How can the government defend human rights when they're negotiating a treaty with China, a country that violates human rights? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Here's the reality, as opposed to conjecture. We have announced a high-level national security and rule of law dialogue as part of comprehensive discussions on expanding our relationship with China. The UN and the UK are conducting the exact same kind of dialogue. Canadian officials have met with their Chinese counterparts, and this allows us to discuss counterterrorism, law enforcement cooperation, consular matters of huge importance to Canadians, and rule of law. Within the rule of law discussions, conversations on the issue of extradition have begun. It was stressed that Canada is governed. It is stressed that Canada has very high standards. Of course, the promotion of protection of human rights.
The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Well, sadly, here is the reality, and here are the facts. Yesterday, the Chinese premier unequivocally defended his country's use of the death penalty. He said he couldn't guarantee that police would not mistreat suspects, and he said anyone questioning the merits of an extradition treaty is disparaging China. And he did all this while standing beside a silent Prime Minister of Canada. How can this government claim to be advancing human rights internationally when they're seriously considering a treaty that would go against human rights?
Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
I'd like to talk about the importance of Canada's engagement with the world. It was a mistake of the former Conservative government to withdraw from countries, to isolate Canada just because they disliked a regime. Under the leadership of our Prime Minister and our government, we are present. We're supporting the United Nations in climate change, Syrian refugees, supporting peace operations, and significantly funding humanitarian initiatives. This, by being present, we're making progress on our interests and the universal values in which we believe, like human rights.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Luxembourg, the Isle of Man, Panama, and now the Bahamas. These are all tax havens which protect banking secrecy, where the creation of new companies is a joke that is simply to facilitate tax evasion. Senator Eaton found out the hard way. She was put on the board of directors of a company in the Bahamas for 12 years without knowing it. Canada is complicit in this situation by signing pseudo tax treaties that legitimize tax havens. When is this government going to take this question seriously? The Honourable Minister of Revenue. Let me be clear. Middle-class Canadians pay their fair share, except for a small minority of taxpayers who don't pay their fair share, and that's unacceptable. That is why this government has invested $444 million at CRA in order to have the best tools to fight tax evasion. We promise this, and we will do it. The honourable member for Rimouski. What does she plan to do about tax havens? She hasn't said anything about that. Changing the topic, for the 150th anniversary of Confederation, access to our national parks will be free. But if Canadians think they'll be able to visit in both official languages, they're in for a surprise, according to the Official Languages Commissioner. 4 years after the last audit, only 2 of 9 recommendations were followed and implemented, so that activities and programs are often available only in English. What's the Liberal government going to do to ensure that all Canadians can fully benefit from our national parks, both in French and in English, for the 150th? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. My colleague opposite. We welcome the report of the Official Languages Commissioner. Our government has undertaken to see to it that all federal services are provided in compliance with the Official Languages Act. As Minister responsible for parks, I am working to see to it that this will be a reality.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are asking why the Prime Minister's friends received over $200,000 in payouts for so-called moving expenses. The reason? The Prime Minister approved it. He could have limited their taxpayer abuse if he wanted to, but he chose not to. When will this Prime Minister stop giving taxpayer money to his Liberal friends?
Liberal Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, once again, these policies have been in place since the 1970s. There were costs that both Mr. Butts and Ms. Telford did not feel comfortable with, and they will reimburse those amounts. What is good to know is that our Prime Minister knows that more needs to be done and has asked the Secretary of the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. And it's important to know that in the previous Prime Minister's office, Prime Minister Stephen Harper's office approved over $300,000 in relocation expenses, included one relocation expense at a cost of $93,131. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Elgin, Middlesex,
Mr.
London.
Speaker, here is the bottom line. The Prime Minister signed off on these expenses and wrote his best friend's six-figure checks. And yesterday, Jerry and Katie were willing to take the fall for their best friend, the Prime Minister. And how can Canadians trust this Prime Minister's judgment when their hard-earned money always seems to end up in personalized cash payouts?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes that more needs to be done, and this government is committed to doing more for Canadians. And we can once again remind Canadians that in the spirit of openness and transparency, they have both disclosed all costs associated with their move. The current rules have been in place since 2008 and were revisited in 2011. Every minister's office has followed those rules since. Let me remind this House that the previous Prime Minister Stephen Harper's office approved over $300,000 in relocation expenses, included one relocation expense at $93,100.
The honourable member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's not be blinded by false transparency that we saw yesterday. According to if the Prime Minister's cronies weren't caught red-handed, there never would have been a partial refund. Now it's clear that they never should have taken that money, and there are other doubtful moving expense claims. The Foreign Affairs Minister, for example, is he going to show greater judgment than the Prime Minister, or is he going to hide his head in the sand and pretend that it's acceptable to spend $119,000 to move to Ottawa? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government, our Prime Minister, asked the Secretary of the Treasury Board to draft a new policy on moving expenses. I think it's very important to also mention that our government has shown constructive leadership. We're helping restore our leadership in the world and take our rightful place on the international stage. The honourable member. That's quite some leadership, Mr. Speaker. The first year of this government's term of office is not even over, and they are showing a very sad lack of judgment in Cabinet. The Foreign Affairs Minister approved, at his discretion, an expense of $119,000 for a single move. Taxpayer money isn't sent to Ottawa for ministers to freely abuse it. Now that we know the Prime Minister made a mistake by authorizing this reimbursement, can the Foreign Affairs Minister also confirm that he lacked judgment? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's office, the previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper's Prime Minister's office, approved over $300,000 in moving expenses, including a single individual who received over $93,000. Order. There's too much noise in the House.
Would like to hear the Government House Leader's response. There's too much noise. I can't even hear what she's saying. I'm sure other honourable members may be missing the same response. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In order to continue with my answer, we have recognized that the policy needs to be revisited, and that's why our Prime Minister asked the Treasury Board Secretary to draft a new policy on moving expenses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are so out of touch with Canadians. While thousands in Lakeland and across Alberta are losing their jobs, businesses and homes, Liberal ministers are approving hundreds of thousands of dollars in staff moving expenses. For example, the Minister of Innovation approved $113,000 for one staffer, to move to Ottawa. We know the Liberals always put themselves before Canadians, but how can the minister's judgment really be this flawed?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. And I think it's important that we recognize that the relocation policies that the opposition is referring to haven't been in place since the 1970s. It's important to note that the previous government had an opportunity to revisit and make these policies better. The difference between the previous government and our government is that our Prime Minister has shown leadership, and that's why our Prime Minister has asked the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. In reference to innovation, science and economic development, let's talk about the good work these Canadians are doing. They're helping to create an inclusive innovation agenda that will make Canada a global centre for innovation.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, it's the bad Liberal pattern of entitlement and frivolous spending. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians are out of work and struggling to make ends meet, while Liberals are lining their pockets with $1.1 million in incidental personalized cash payouts and incidentals. The Minister of Innovation signed off on $113,000 for one staffer to move to Ottawa. How much of that was a personalized cash payout? Was it delivered in a brown envelope?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. It has been the Government of Canada's policy to reimburse relocation costs of senior officials and their families since the 1970s. This policy was last updated by the previous government in 2008, has not been renewed since 2011. That's why our Prime Minister has asked the Treasury Board to create a new policy to govern relocation expenses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the Phoenix pay system was supposed to modernize the federal payrolls. Instead, it has caused far more problems than it's fixed, and it's wasted far more money than it was supposed to save. I'm sure Liberal insiders are glad Phoenix wasn't in place last year, or they may still be waiting for their moving expenses. I have a simple question. Why did the minister not keep the old payroll system as a backup to make sure everyone could get paid?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
The current problems with public service pay are totally unacceptable. Our priority is to ensure that workers are paid for the work they've done. Over the summer, we set up 4 temporary pay offices to increase the capacity of our call center, and we've been issuing emergency cash advances for problems associated with Phoenix. Our team is working tirelessly to help all workers having problems with their pay. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, the implementation of Phoenix has been an utter failure. 5 months after coming online, tens of thousands of federal employees still haven't been paid. The government had no problem reimbursing moving expenses for political staffers. So why can't it pay its workers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services. Our priority is to see to it that workers are paid for the work they've done. Our minister said in committee that we couldn't use a parallel system beyond the transition period because the previous government cut 700 employees. The minister ensured that she would get all the information she needed to make informed decisions. Now, our team is working tirelessly to ensure that everyone gets their pay. Thank you.
For South Surrey, White Rock.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister and the Prime Minister have been announcing and re-announcing infrastructure projects across Canada for almost the past year now. There are thousands of Canadians
I'm sure it's not the intent to take away from the Honourable Member's time. The Honourable Member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, and let me get to the end before you start clapping. The Minister and the Prime Minister have been announcing and re-announcing infrastructure projects across Canada for the past year. There are thousands...
There are thousands of Canadians who want and need jobs. Mr. Speaker, will the minister please tell Canadians exactly how many Liberal infrastructure projects have actual shovels in the ground and that are under construction?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are delivering on our commitments, and since taking office, we have approved over 900 projects, including more than 700 projects we were for the budget 2016 funding for infrastructure. More than 60% of those projects are currently underway, Mr. Speaker, improving transit systems and ensuring Canadians have safe and clean water to drink. We will continue to work with our municipal and provincial and territorial partners to deliver on the commitments that we made to Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
South Surrey, White Rock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, the minister can talk about all of the planned projects. But what Canadians really care about is how many jobs have been created in their communities. On the government's own website, Canadians can clearly see that only 6 projects began construction this summer. 6. And these 6 projects are only worth $8.5 million. Mr. Speaker, does the minister really think this is good enough when thousands of Canadians are out of work?
Good question. Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I am honored to say that even in honourable members' own municipality, we are investing money into the design planning work that is currently underway, along with many other municipalities, to advance public transit, to do the work on water, wastewater, as well as many other projects. 60% of the projects that we approved under our new plan are currently underway, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Edmonton, Riverbend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta is facing record-high unemployment rates, and families are struggling to get by. Yesterday, Statistics Canada released new EI numbers, and Alberta saw an astonishing increase in EI claims of 87% since of July last year. Mr. Speaker, I know the Liberals profess to make decisions based on facts, so I ask, how much more proof do they need before they admit their disastrous policies are failing Albertans?
The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to be part of a member that is both sensitive and sensible. We're sensitive to the economic situation across Canada, in particular where a number of Canadians are feeling left out of the labour market. We are sensible because we are investing very strongly in our economy to build now and for the future of our nation.
Honourable Member for Edmonton, Riverbend.
I don't know if you listened to my question, Mr. Speaker, because that obviously wasn't an answer. Mr. Speaker, families are losing their homes, companies are taking their businesses elsewhere, and skilled workers are being forced to line up at the EI counter. Rehearsed talking points are not the answer. The situation in Alberta is unique, and we don't need more job-killing Liberal policies. When are the Liberals going to stop destroying the Alberta economy and allow Albertans to get back to work?
The Honourable Minister for Families, Children and Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very honoured to be part of a government that is investing both in the quality and the quantity of services delivered to unemployed Canadians across Canada. We've done that very significantly in budget last year. We're very pleased that we're offering better services, better benefits targeted both in terms of responding to the needs and to the expectations of Canadians. And we're building our economy built on strong fiscal policy and very good infrastructure programs.
For Courtney Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, in just 19 days, the extension of the softwood lumber agreement will expire. With no deal, forestry companies on Vancouver Island and across British Columbia will be hit hard by hefty American tariffs. Many of my constituents could lose their jobs. These are our neighbours, our friends, our relatives. Why is this government being so quiet with the deadline looming so soon? And what is this government doing to protect forestry jobs in British Columbia?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary, the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question, and I share the concern, this government shares the concern that people have across Canada with respect to the lumber industry, and particularly the softwood lumber question. We're working hard at negotiating, Mr. Speaker. We've worked hard at understanding the differences across the country and the various nuances in the industry, including British Columbia. And we are doing our best, yes, quietly in negotiations, but we're working hard at negotiations. The minister has met with her counterpart a number of times. We continue to press. We continue to try to reach an agreement before the end of the period. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promised a commitment to First Nations to make much badly needed investments both in infrastructure and social services. But as of today, only 1% of the funding has arrived in First Nations communities. While Liberal insiders seem to have no problem getting funds they don't need, First Nation communities are left waiting for funds they so badly need. Why are almost all of the critical investments for First Nations being held back? What is the government waiting for?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank the member for the question, and I think the 1% number has already been corrected in the media. We're delivering faster than under the previous government, with nearly half of this year's portion of budget 2016 already allocated. The new funding supports construction, service, or renovation of 2,700 housing units, as well as 195 water projects that includes 26 that will address the long-term drinking water advisories, 118 schools, 126 other new infrastructure programs. Our government is committed to renewing the relationship with Indigenous communities, and we are delivering on that commitment.
Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, as I spent time in the communities of the beautiful riding of Fundy Royal this summer, I often heard of hardships finding enough employees in the tourism, transportation, and manufacturing industries. Community leaders also expressed concerns about the shrinking numbers in schools and the difficulties supporting local businesses. These are all issues that relate back to Atlantic Canada's shrinking and aging population. Can the minister update this House on the Atlantic Growth Strategy, and in particular any initiatives to increase immigration to Atlantic Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizens.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her excellent question, and I would like to commend her on her motion concerning immigration to Atlantic Canada, which is before the House. During the summer, I found that the Atlantic provinces were particularly keen on immigration for demographic reasons and because they know that it helps create jobs. And that is why we created a pilot project which will welcome more immigrants to the Atlantic region, and it will also take measures to make sure those people stay.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, in February 2016, the Canadian Transportation Act Review Report was tabled in this House. It recommended that Canada's foreign ownership limit be increased to 49% to allow other carriers to provide improved air transportation for Canadians. In spite of the strong business case, the strong market demand, and the overwhelming support of airports and municipalities, including the regional municipality of Waterloo, the minister has chosen not to take action. Why is the minister standing in the way of job growth?
Hear. Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government is working collaboratively to address the recommendations of the Canada Transportation Act Review and develop Canada's future transportation system. We are carefully considering the applications by Jetlines and Enerjet in the context of developing a long-term framework for all Canadian air travelers. Any decision will be made in the interest of middle-class Canadians, travelers, and those working hard to join it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals claim to stand up for the middle class, but the recent non-action by the Transport Minister on foreign ownership rules for air carriers means that middle-class Canadians will continue to have poor airport service and pay higher fees. Terrible. The clear recommendation of the Canadian Transport Act Review would reduce costs and give better service for middle-class Canadians who use the Waterloo Regional Airport in my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga. Why is the minister ignoring them?
Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that question. I am certain that Canadians appreciate that our government is taking an inclusive and evidence-based approach to determining the future of Canada's transportation network. Any travel decisions made will be in the best interests of middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join it, and we are analyzing the application by Jetlines and Enerjet for an exemption to foreign ownership limits in that context. In the coming months, the Minister of Transport will continue to present initiatives for a safer, cleaner, more secure and more efficient transportation sector in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals need to ask for a refund from their deliverology expert because they sure can't get things done. They have also left Indigenous Canadians and job-creating industries in the dark about the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. In May, the Justice Minister said they would adopt UNDRIP, quote, without qualification. Now she says it's simplistic, unworkable, and can't be done word for word. Why is this Justice Minister misleading Indigenous Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which we have endorsed without qualification. We are committed to moving forward to operationalize the United Nations Declaration within a Section 35 context, our unique constitutional context, and we are committed to doing that with Indigenous peoples, and as the Declaration states, it will be done by way of legislation, policies, and other constructive arrangements, but it will be done jointly.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
You know, Mr. Speaker, the Globe and Mail recently published an editorial, and they called UNDRIP drip, liberal native rights policy. The Justice Minister has gone from promoting the Declaration on the world stage at the UN to saying at home that it is simplistic and unworkable. So she's saying one thing on the world stage and saying another thing back in Canada. Is the confusion being created by the Minister deliberate, or does she not know what she's doing?
Mr. Justice.
Again, our government has committed and endorsed without qualification the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We are committed to moving forward with a nation-to-nation relationship that's based on recognition, and how to operationalize the Declaration here in Canada will be done jointly with Indigenous peoples as we develop solutions, and we will operationalize the United Nations Declaration and its articles, its minimum standards here within our Section 35 constitutional framework, which is extremely vast, and we will ensure that the full box of rights are recognized.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan and West Kootenay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission has a crucial role to oversee the safety and security of nuclear facilities. But this summer, whistleblowers warned that CNSC staff failed to give critical safety information to commissioners. In spite of the seriousness of the allegation, the minister shrugged his shoulders and the CNSC president laughed it off. But Canadians deserve better. With new appointments to the nuclear watchdog expected soon, what is the minister's plan to improve oversight of nuclear safety?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, our government places the highest priority on health and safety related to nuclear activities in Canada. I expect the culture at the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to be safety-focused and open to employees by fostering a respectful workplace that encourages people's views on opportunities for improvement. The CNSC has reviewed the issues raised in the anonymous letter, and Commission members discussed this topic at a recent meeting. The independent Commission members will advise CSNC staff on actions to be taken.
The Honourable Member for Windsor, Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. New reports about RCMP and CSIS involvement in torture abroad are horrifying. Not only did Canadian security officials know torture was occurring, in some cases, they even provided the torturers with the specific questions. Canadians do not accept this human rights abuse under any circumstances. So why do the Liberals still sanction the use of information obtained through torture?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We must protect the rights and freedoms of Canadians. Our government is taking important measures to put in place an additional mechanism to ensure that our national security organizations obey the law. In fact, we tabled bill on the Parliamentary Oversight Committee to make sure that oversight is provided.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of Canadians have their mobility rights and livelihoods threatened because of the potential ban from entering the U.S. if they admit to ever having used marijuana, a drug the Liberals are now making legal. The Minister of Public Safety totally missed the mark. He just concluded a customs pre-clearance agreement with the United States that failed to address this issue. That is a huge mistake, Mr. Speaker. Will the minister withdraw Bill C-23 and renegotiate an agreement with the U.S. on pre-clearance that actually protects Canadians?
Parliamentary Secretary. The government appreciates the discussions that we have with our southern partners in order to improve the relationship on both sides of the border. The discussions on certain specific situations, especially with regard to marijuana, have been discussed and will continue to be the object of dialogue to improve the situation.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, after much effort to be heard, veteran Claude Lancette finally resorted to a hunger strike on Parliament Hill, protesting the military's use of methylquine and its effects on our soldiers and sailors. Instead of giving him a concrete promise to address his concerns, the Liberals instead said they would set up yet another consultative process to study the issue. Why is the minister's reaction yet again a consultation delay tactic instead of action?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the honourable member for her question. I know she cares a great deal about veterans, and she only wants their best. The issue around methylquine has been discussed over the years. We know inside Veterans Affairs and National Defence and Health Canada, we need to work together to address the issue, and we cannot comment on specific cases, but we have now a working group established that we're going to work together on this issue and make sure that it is properly addressed. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have no shortage of money when it comes to their friends. Unfortunately, some thalidomide victims who have had a lifetime of suffering haven't been treated as well. This summer they were denied compensation without an interview or even a medical evaluation. Mr. Speaker, this is a disgrace. When is the minister going to fix this?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Committed to supporting Canadian thalidomide survivors to help them live the rest of their lives with dignity. There is no definitive medical test for thalidomide exposure. An objective review process was used to assess individuals to determine who was eligible for financial support. Based on this, 25 more individuals have been added to the thalidomide survivors program, bringing the total number of individuals to 122. This demonstrates that the review process is working. Additional new survivors may yet be identified as some applications remain under review.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Transportation Act Review report was tabled by the Minister of Transport earlier this year. This marked the beginning of a new discussion on how we can enhance Canada's transportation system. Whether by air, rail, road, or marine, this network plays a major role in all ridings across Canada, including Niagara Centre, Canada's Canal Corridor. Could the Parliamentary Secretary please update this House as to the progress the Minister has in fact made so far this year in addressing the review and setting a long-term agenda for transportation in our great nation?
Well, Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Niagara Centre for his important question and support on this file. Our government recognized the need for a collaborative approach in addressing the CTA review and developing Canada's future transportation system. Since the report's tabling, the minister has actively engaged with Canadians, stakeholders, provinces and territories, and Indigenous groups to hear their views and discuss ideas. The feedback heard during these past months has been incredibly valuable, and this rich and diversified input will play a major role in defining his long-term agenda for transportation in Canada. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
For Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal implementation of the Phoenix Pay System has been a complete and utter disaster. Senior officials and the Minister of Public Works knew of the countless risks with the Phoenix launch, but they went ahead with it anyways. This has cost the taxpayers well over $50 million and damaged the lives of over 80,000 public servants. Why won't the minister roll out bonuses for the people responsible for this train wreck?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Our priority is around ensuring that the people who are not receiving their pay get their pay. There will be a full investigation. We've asked the Auditor General afterwards, but for now we need to focus on the problem at hand, and that's getting people paid, and that's our priority. And so thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to commend the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, who recently signed bilateral agreements with all provinces and territories for Phase 1 of our government's historical infrastructure plan. One of the projects might be the prolongation of the Rapibus route so that people can get to and from work faster. Can the minister explain to us how our government will continue to invest and make Canadians aware of public transit? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague, the member for Gatineau, for his advocacy on public transit. As a former bus driver, I firsthand know the importance of public transit in our communities, and I was happy to see the Canadian Urban Transit Association members here last week to talk about the transit. Our government is investing $20 billion in public transit over the next 10 years. These new dedicated funding will help shorten commute times, reduce air pollution, strengthen our communities, and grow our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Ottawa Civic Hospital campus is almost 100 years old. It needs to be replaced. The hospital's expert panel chose a spot right across the street in which to do it, but the Environment Minister interfered to block construction there, and now the NCC may force the hospital to move to another, more expensive location. The government has had no problem helping with the $1 million in moving costs for the Prime Minister's friends and political staffers. If there are extra costs associated with the Environment Minister's interference, will the federal government help with the moving costs of this hospital?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for his question. Our government is committed to a state-of-the-art hospital in Ottawa, and we understand the need from the community to make a decision quickly. Because we believe in transparent, rigorous, evidence-based decision-making, the Minister has asked the National Capital Commission to lead a site review, and that site review will take into consideration 12 federal land sites across the city. We encourage Canadians to get involved with this process. That was launched September 22nd. We are confident in the NCC's ability to lead a thorough study in order to provide the government with the best recommendation possible.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois has bought more time for Haitian and Zimbabwean refugees who were threatened with deportation and who were mostly refugees from the Haiti earthquake. But still, these refugees have not received an answer, and they are in trouble. Often their work permits have expired, they have no access to health insurance or banking services or telephone services. Will the Minister of Immigration pledge to finally adopt a global solution so that these refugees receive their permanent residency before October 1st? It is urgent. The Honourable Minister of Immigration and Refugees. Mr. Speaker, we have already taken such an initiative. I had a press conference with my Quebec counterpart in the Haitian community a few months ago, and we encouraged them to come to our offices, and we were ready to accept and welcome these Haitian refugees if they had the right documentation, and that's what we did. We did everything we could to welcome these Haitians. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, in Paris, the government pledged to fight climate change, and that's a good thing. But today, the Liberals are backing down and are adopting the same GHG reduction carbon targets as the Conservatives, who don't even recognize climate change. But the government won't even get close to achieving these weak targets without putting aside the Energy East pipeline project. Does the government realize that you can't reduce GHG emissions by increasing them? And yet that is logical for Quebecers. The Honourable Minister of Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. Our government knows that the growth of our economy and the protection of our environment go hand in hand. The federal government, with the provinces and territories, recognized in Vancouver that we must have an ambitious plan to meet our international obligations now and in future. I am working very hard with my counterparts, and that includes the Minister of Environment of Quebec, to ensure that we have a plan. With the previous government, they had targets but no plan, and we are serious.
L'honorable député de Repentigny.
Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, a new argument. The First Nations, the Indigenous people of Canada and the United States, signed a treaty yesterday against the further oil production and distribution in the oil sands. Like the Quebec people, they recognize the importance of fighting climate change. The government says it wants to act, but it refuses to put aside the Energy East pipeline, which will increase the tar sands production of 40%. There is no social license. The First Nations are against it. So is the Quebec Nation. Will the government finally abandon this toxic project? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The Honourable Member knows that the government is committed to establishing a nation-to-nation relationship with Indigenous peoples. She also will know that we have been moving across the country deliberately and seriously, talking to Indigenous leaders about real accommodation, as energy projects are now in front of the regulatory process. In all provinces of Canada, we will be looking very carefully at the impact of these developments on Indigenous communities, and the conversations and the consultations have been meaningful, and we look for accommodation.
And that concludes question period for today. Tabling of documents.
Tabling documents. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour of tabling in both official languages a treaty entitled Convention between the Government of Canada and the Government of the State of Israel for the avoidance of double taxation and the prevention of fiscal evasion with respect to taxes on income, signed in New York, September 21st, 2016. Explanatory notes accompany this treaty.
On behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and pursuant to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour to table in both official languages the treaty entitled Convention between the Government of Canada and the Government of the State of Israel for the avoidance of double taxation and the